Some of the most intimidating physiques in the world aren't built in million-dollar gyms. They're forged in concrete boxes with no equipment, no trainers, and no choice. This isn't about motivation. This isn't about discipline you can buy. This is about what happens when a human body becomes the only territory left to control, and when time, routine, and survival psychology reshape flesh into something harder, denser, and more calculated than anything you'll see in a commercial fitness center. Walk into certain environments, and you'll see bodies that look engineered, not bulky, not soft, carved, dense, present. These physiques don't come from supplements or Instagram programs. They come from confinement, hierarchy, endless repetition, and the psychological pressure of living in a compressed social world where your body is your resume and your security system. Prison workouts aren't optional hobbies. They're coping mechanisms, identity anchors, and survival strategies wrapped into one brutal routine. Disclaimer: this video examines human adaptability under extreme constraint. It does not glorify incarceration, provide training instructions, or encourage criminal behavior. The focus is psychological, sociological, and environmental, not instructional. This is how confinement creates physiques that intimidate without a single dumbbell. This is how structure, boredom, and survival instinct turn the body into a weapon you never have to use. And this is why some of the scariest transformations happen in places where freedom dies, but routine never does. The body becomes a form of protection. In environments where personal space evaporates and control shrinks to almost nothing, the body becomes a last boundary you can offend. Size isn't just aesthetic. Density isn't vanity. In confined settings, your physique communicates before you open your mouth. It tells people whether you're a target, a threat, or someone who gets left alone. This isn't about starting fights. It's about preventing them. It's about micro decisions that happen in hallways, yard corners, and meal lines. Who gets approached? Who gets tested? Who gets passed over? Research into prison physical culture shows that muscularity and fitness routines enable what sociologists call tough self-presentations. In men's prisons especially, a hard physique affects hierarchy and social positioning without requiring aggression. You don't have to prove anything if your body already tells a story. You don't have to escalate if your presence suggests the cost wouldn't be worth it. This is intimidation by stillness, not violence. The scariest part isn't size. It's the control. A body that looks trained signals discipline, routine, and the ability to endure. It suggests someone who doesn't fold under pressure, someone who converts dead time into progress, someone who understands that in a compressed social world, reputation is built fast, and bodies speak louder than words. When you can't control your schedule, your cellmate, or your release date, you can control your posture, your breathing, and your reps. The body becomes a project because it's the only construction site available. This mechanism is unique to extreme confinement because the stakes are different. Outside, a physique might open doors or attract attention. Inside, it closes threats. Outside, training is about goals. Inside, it's about boundaries. The gym goer chases aesthetics. The inmate builds armor. And that difference between one that looks strong and needing to be perceived as costly to engage produces a physique type that's distinct. Not showy, not inflated, but dense, hard, and deliberate. Every rep is a message. Every routine is a signal. In prison, your body can become your resume and your security system. Because when everything else is stripped away, presence is the only currency that can't be confiscated. Structure replaces freedom. Freedom is chaos in disguise. You wake up when you want. You eat when you feel like it. You train if you're motivated. You skip if you're tired. That flexibility, the thing most people treasure, is also the thing that destroys consistency. Outside, the problem isn't knowledge. It's the competing priorities, the shifting schedules, the endless micro-decisions that erode discipline before it ever compounds. Inside, all of that disappears. Choice dies. And when choice dies, routine becomes the only stability available. Prison removes freedom, but it replaces it with structure so rigid it becomes accidental training discipline. Counts happen at fixed times. Meals arrive on schedule. Movement windows open and close like clockwork. Days repeat with mechanical precision. What looks like punishment from the outside becomes, for some, the gift of predictability. You know exactly when you'll have access to the yard. You know when your cell door opens. You know when you eat. That structure, forced, unforgiving, relentless, eliminates the biggest obstacle to physique transformation: inconsistency. Studies examining exercise programs in correctional settings highlight that structured environments make consistent participation feasible. Outside, most people fail not because they lack willpower, but because their day never repeats. Inside, the day is a loop. That loop can become a physique engine. Training becomes the clock. Push-ups mark morning. Pull-ups mark afternoon. Bodyweight circuits become the rhythm by which time is measured when time otherwise feels formless. The same thing many people hate, repetition, is exactly what produces a manufactured, carved look that prison physiques are known for. This is why some inmates can sustain training intensity for years without variation. There's no vacation to disrupt the routine, no weekend that derails momentum, no social obligation that competes for time. The structure doesn't care about motivation. It just repeats. And human biology responds to repetition better than it responds to inspiration. Muscle adapts to consistent stress, not sporadic effort. Physiques are built through accumulated volume over time, not bursts of intensity followed by long gaps. Prison strips away the gaps. It removes the choice to quit. And for those who channel that rigidity into physical training, the result is a body that looks like it was assembled on a factory line, because in a way, the factory is the schedule, the product is a physique. And the scary part is how efficiently the system works when freedom is removed from the equation. Boredom turns into volume. Time outside prison is scarce. Inside, it's suffocating. Hours stretch. Days blur. Weeks feel identical. And when you have endless time with limited entertainment options, movement stops being a choice and starts being a reflex. Push-ups become something to do before they become something that changes your body. Pacing becomes routine before it becomes cardio. Bodyweight training starts as a distraction, then becomes a ritual, then becomes identity. Boredom, heavy, slow, inescapable, pushes people toward any activity that creates a sense of progress when life feels frozen. Academic literature on prison recreation discusses how physical activity functions as both coping mechanism and routine stabilizer. When traditional entertainment is restricted and digital stimulation doesn't exist, the body becomes a default outlet. You can't scroll. You can't binge shows. You can't disappear into a video game for hours. What's left? Movement, repetition, the strange satisfaction of feeling your muscles burn when nothing else in your day feels real. Training becomes a thing that makes time pass, and once people realize it also makes them stronger, harder, more capable, the loop reinforces itself. The volume inmates accumulate isn't planned. It's inevitable. When there's little else to do, people repeat what works. They do sets throughout the day not because they're following a program, but because the alternative is staring at a wall. They hit high rep counts not from ambition, but from sheer availability of time. Outside, people struggle to find 45 minutes for the gym. Inside, people have 16 waking hours with no commute, no errands, no obligations pulling them in 10 directions. That time abundance converts boredom into training volume. And volume, over months and years, is what builds the dense, conditioned physiques that look almost inhuman in their consistency. The controversy around weight removal in various prison systems during the 1990s revealed something critical. Officials who supported the bans feared inmates becoming bigger and badder, while critics argued that removing training outlets would increase tension and eliminate a key coping mechanism. Both perspectives acknowledge the same truth. Training reduces frustration. It channels energy. It provides structure in an otherwise structureless existence. And when that structure runs for years without interruption, boredom transforms into mechanical volume that will be impossible to sustain outside. The scary physique isn't built by intensity. It's built by time. Time that inmates have in abundance and that free people can never replicate. Status is physical. In a compressed social world, reputation builds fast. There's no resume, no job title, no car to signal success, no house to showcase. Status inside is visible, immediate, and often physical. Muscularity, posture, and control movement become markers of competence in an environment where other status signals are stripped away. This isn't about ego, it's about hierarchy. And hierarchy in confinement is often established through presence, not conversation. Sociological research describes how physical activity and muscularity in men's prisons are used to cultivate tough presentations that influence social positioning. A hard physique signals more than strength. It signals discipline, time investment, and the ability to sustain routines under pressure. It suggests someone who doesn't panic, someone who moves with purpose, someone who understands the social rules and operates within them efficiently. The scary part isn't size. It's the stillness. Someone who looks trained but doesn't need to prove it. Someone whose capability is assumed, not demonstrated. Status isn't only about size. It's about capability signals. Calmness under stress. Controlled movement. Not looking frantic or reactive. Efficient routines that others notice and respect. The gym culture inside mirrors the gym culture outside in surprising ways. There are social rules, a pecking order, respect for consistency. But the pressures are different. Outside, gym status might get you followers. Inside, it might prevent confrontation. Outside, training is optional. Inside, it's strategic. The body becomes a language you speak without talking, a currency you earn through repetition, and a reputation you maintain through visible consistency. Prison fitness culture functions as a parallel universe to public gym culture, shaped by survival psychology instead of vanity. People earn respect not by how much they lift, but by how consistently they show up, how controlled they remain, and how their routine signals mastery over an environment designed to strip away control. The physique becomes proof of agency. It's evidence that someone can take the same brutal repetition that breaks others and turn it into progress. And in a place where progress is rare, that proof matters. The body becomes a status symbol because it's the only symbol left. The mirror is a weapon. Confinement intensifies self-observation. With fewer external achievement available, no promotions, no new purchases, no milestones, the body becomes a primary project that provides visible progress and controllable goals. The mirror stops being a casual glance and becomes a scoreboard. The physique becomes measurable when life feels unmeasurable. And when you can't control your day, you can control your reps, your posture, your breathing, your consistency. That micro-control, repeated daily, becomes a psychological anchor in an environment where almost everything else is dictated by others. Research connects physical activity in prison settings with mental health variables and coping profiles. Training becomes an emotional regulation tool, not just a fitness strategy. The body as project dynamic should be understood responsibly. Not everyone becomes obsessive, but self-focus intensifies when options shrink. Inside, there's no career ladder climb, no side hustle to build, no relationship to invest in. What's left is the body, the one thing that responds to effort, the one thing that changes visibly over time, the one thing that you own when ownership has been stripped from almost everything else. Studies on prison embodiment discuss how inmates use self-management strategies like diet and exercise to assert agency and cope with the environment. The mirror becomes a weapon because it provides immediate feedback in a world where feedback is otherwise rare and usually negative. You see definition. You see veins. You see progress. That visual reinforcement creates a feedback loop. Effort produces change. Change produces satisfaction. Satisfaction drives more effort. Outside, people struggle to sustain this loop because life offers too many alternative sources of satisfaction. Inside, alternatives are limited, so the loop intensifies. The scary physique that emerges from this dynamic isn't random. It's the result of hyper-focused attention on a single controllable variable. Outside, people split attention across careers, relationships, hobbies, and digital noise. Inside, attention compresses. The body becomes a canvas, the scoreboard, and the proof that time hasn't been wasted. For some, it's empowering. For others, it's obsessive. But for almost everyone who sustains training in confinement, the mirror stops being passive reflection and becomes active measurement. And when measurement becomes daily ritual, the physique becomes something different. Not just fit, but engineered. Not just strong, but deliberate. The mirror is the weapon because it turns invisible effort into visible power. And in an environment where power is scarce, visibility matters. Food scarcity creates discipline. Food inside isn't a choice, it's a system. Meals arrive on schedule. Portions are predetermined. Timing is rigid. Access is controlled. That structure can create consistent eating patterns, whether intentional or not. But the reality of prison nutrition isn't universal. Studies analyzing jail and prison menus show that calorie availability can vary dramatically depending on jurisdiction, security level, and era. Some analyses reveal that menus combined with commissary purchases can exceed typical dietary guidelines, with macros meeting acceptable ranges but diet quality and sodium levels remaining concerns. Other reports describe hunger between meals and insufficient calories in certain systems. Both realities exist, and physique outcome depends heavily on context. What's consistent across systems is structure. Meals don't arrive when you're hungry. They arrive when they're scheduled. You don't eat based on appetite. You eat based on availability. That forced timing creates routine around eating, even if the nutrition itself varies. For some inmates, commissary becomes the key variable. Those with resources can supplement standard meals, tailoring intake to support training. For others, commissary is inaccessible, and the body adapts to whatever the system provides. Research suggests commissary purchases may influence weight change outcomes more than the standard menu in some contexts, a surprising twist that highlights how the add-ons, not the base diet, often drive physique results. This creates two parallel realities. In systems or situations where food is genuinely limited, the body adapts through metabolic efficiency and strategic nutrient timing. In systems where calories are adequate or excessive but quality is poor, the body still changes, often in ways that prioritize survival and function over aesthetics, but still producing hard, dense physiques through consistent training and rigid meal timing. The no-gym physique can emerge in either scenario, because what matters more than total calories is the predictability. Outside, people eat chaotically, different times, different amounts, different foods daily. Inside, eating becomes logistics, timing, scarcity, trade, and predictability. The scary part isn't deprivation, it's control. Inmates who sustain extreme physiques learn to maximize whatever system they're in. They understand meal timing instinctively. They know what can be traded. They know when commissary is available and what supports recovery. They turn rigid structure into advantage. Outside, flexibility feels like freedom but produces inconsistency. Inside, rigidity feels like punishment but produces results. The physique that emerges isn't from starvation. It's from structure so relentless that the body has no choice but to adapt. Food becomes fuel, not comfort. Meals become scheduled inputs, not emotional events. And when eating is stripped of choice and reframed as logistics, the body responds with efficiency that free people rarely achieve. Training becomes identity. Outside, people train toward goals. Inside, people train toward identity. There's no finish line, no competition to peak for, no beach season. Training becomes who you are, not what you do. The strong one, the disciplined one, the guy who never misses. That identity, built through daily repetition and visible consistency, becomes a social role, a self-story, and a survival strategy wrapped into one. When a behavior becomes identity instead of just a goal, it becomes more consistent than motivation could ever sustain. You don't need to feel inspired when the routine is simply part of who you are. Identity-based behavior is studied extensively in behavioral science. When people define themselves by an action rather than aspiring to an outcome, the action becomes automatic. Prison amplifies this dynamic because identity inside is performed physically. Outside, identity is often performed online, through posts, profiles, curated images. Inside, identity is performed through posture, consistency, and physical capability. Sociology research on masculinity and identity performance in prison highlights that bodywork is a major part of how identities are negotiated. Training becomes a daily ritual, a reputation anchor, a coping tool, and a way to turn dead time into progress time. Once people respect you as disciplined, you work to maintain it. The identity locks in. Skipping a workout isn't just missing a session. It's violating the role you've built. In a world where roles matter for safety and social positioning, breaking that role has costs. So training continues, not for motivation, but for maintenance of self-concept. The body becomes proof of identity. The routine becomes non-negotiable. And over months and years, that identity-driven consistency produces physiques that look almost robotic in their density and symmetry, because they weren't built by chasing aesthetics. They were built by defending identity. This is why some inmates maintain extreme physiques for years or even decades. The training isn't a phase. It's a permanent feature of who they are. Outside, people cycle through fitness phases. They get in shape, they fall off, they restart. Inside, falling off isn't an option because it's not just a fitness decision. It's an identity crisis. The scary physique that results is a byproduct of identity reinforcement, social pressure, and the psychological need to control something when everything else is controlled by others. Training becomes meaning, identity becomes armor, and the body becomes the most visible proof that even in confinement, agency still exists. Survival sharpens focus. The outside world is a constant attention auction. Notifications, feeds, entertainment, career, social obligations, hobbies. The modern distraction economy fragments focus into 1,000 competing priorities. Inside, the noise changes. Fewer choices, fewer distractions, fewer microdopamine outlets that can sharpen focus onto controllable routines for better or worse. And for those who channel that focus into training, the result is a level of concentration that free people rarely sustain. Studies highlight mental health burdens in prison environments and the relevance of structured coping strategies, with physical activity tied to better coping profiles in various research contexts. Training becomes a form of meditation by effort. It's something to focus on when focus has nowhere else to go. Outside, people struggle with consistency because life offers too many alternatives. Inside, alternatives shrink. The mind locks onto what's available. And when training becomes one of the few activities that produces measurable progress, it absorbs attention in ways that would be impossible in a normal environment. The debate around weight removal in the 1990s captured two narratives. Policymakers feared physical enhancement and increased danger, while critics argued exercise reduced tension and improved institutional stability. Both sides acknowledged that training served a function beyond fitness. It was a psychological release valve, a coping mechanism, and a focus anchor. The scary physique is partly a product of that narrow focus. The same inputs, bodyweight exercises, limited equipment, rigid routines, repeated in an environment that doesn't allow lifestyle drift. Outside, people plateau because their attention drifts. Inside, attention has nowhere to drift to. Survival psychology sharpens priorities. There's no career ladder, no social media validation, no distraction economy pulling focus in 10 directions, just body, time, and will. That compression of attention, forced, unrelenting, absolute, produces physiques that look almost unnatural in their consistency because they're built in conditions where distraction doesn't exist. The body becomes a project because there's nothing else to build. Training becomes a focus because there's nothing else to chase. And the result is a physique that looks engineered not because of superior programming, but because of superior focus. Focus that free people can't replicate because freedom itself is a distraction. Inside, survival strips away the noise. What's left is the body, the routine, and the stubborn human need to control something when everything else has been taken away. And that focus, maintained for years without interruption, produces the physiques that make people ask, how is that possible without a gym? The answer is simple. It's not the gym that was missing. It's the distractions. Prison physiques aren't magic. They're evidence. Evidence that extreme environments produce extreme adaptations. Evidence that structure, routine, and psychological pressure can reshape the human body more effectively than any program you can buy. Evidence that the scariest transformations don't come from supplements or equipment. They come from time, consistency, hierarchy, and the human need to control something when freedom disappears. This isn't glorification. It's observation. Confinement creates conditions that free people can't replicate. Endless time, forced routine, compressed social dynamics, and elimination of distraction. The mechanisms are clear. The body becomes protection. Structure replaces freedom. Boredom converts into volume. Status becomes physical. The mirror becomes a scoreboard. Food becomes logistics. Training becomes identity. And survival sharpens focus to a level that free people rarely sustain. Each mechanism alone is powerful. Combined, they create physiques that look engineered because, in a way, they are engineered by constraint, forged by routine, hardened by time. If this breakdown gave you a new perspective on adaptability, discipline, and what the human body can become under pressure, hit the like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into extreme environments, psychological transformation, and the hidden mechanisms that shape physiques. Drop a comment with your thoughts. And remember, you don't need confinement to build consistency, but you do need to understand what confinement teaches. Structure works, routine compounds, and focus, when maintained without distraction, produces results that motivation alone never will.